campaign.
Thank you very much. Nadine Barber in Downing Street. Live now to Andrew Symonds in Westminster. And as you've been saying, the rhetoric and the temperament might be very different, but the challenge essentially remains the same: how to get a deal through a parliament that is divided.
Well, certainly, Mariam, and looking at this isn't a reshuffle, it's a wholesale clear-out, one that's not in modern politics in Britain. There's been nothing like it. It is extraordinary, really, and has he gone too far? Has he taken too many risks? With me right now to discuss this are two political journalists from, I would say, differing parts of the media spectrum, if you don't mind me saying. First of all, John Stevens here, Deputy Political Editor from the Daily Mail, and also Benjamin Kentish, Political Correspondent of The Independent. First of all, to you, Benjamin, this is extraordinary. Is it too high risk?
It's a huge risk. Nobody predicted this. We knew there'd be some refreshing of the cabinet. There's been some sort of people who have been cast as dead wood, I think, accurately. But the scale of this, as you say, it's not a reshuffle, it's a total clear out. More than half the cabinet either sacked or resigned, including people that were well expected to stay within that top team, people like Penny Mordaunt, Brexiteers, ministers who had been seen to be quite a good job, and in some cases, in her case, possibly a future leader of the party.
John, do you agree?
I'm not sure I do, actually. I think, Theresa May, the last few years, has been the Prime Minister, and she's struggled with ministers not being loyal to her, and she's had ill discipline from her ministers. And Boris Johnson's shown today that he will not accept anything except absolute loyalty. So people who didn't back him in the leadership campaign to become Tory leader have been immediately removed, and he's just showing he's going to accept no sort of nonsense from his cabinet.
But surely that's a big risk, because you've got an awkward squad out there now. Everyone knows that when you've got influential key big hitters out on those backbenches, they're going to cause trouble, and there's a wafer-thin majority.
I think so, and you see people like Philip Hammond, who is the Chancellor, he's been opponent of a no-deal Brexit, and he's warned that he will oppose that from the backbenches. I think you're always going to have people like that, whatever Boris Johnson did with his cabinet, and so I think he's just shown that he's got a team to get on with this now and get us out of the EU by the 31st of October.
Do you agree, Benjamin?
Well, I think John's right. There is going to be a small group of rebels. But what Boris Johnson's done today, within minutes of taking over, is massively increased that group, created a lot of hostility, a lot of ill will amongst people like James Brockenshire, minister who supported him throughout the campaign, now on the backbenches with what one would have thought a grudge. And bear in mind, as you said, he's got a majority of 2, possibly going down to 1 if the Tories lose the by-election next week. Not a Prime Minister who can afford to have that kind of opposition on his backbenches.
It's the sort of person that many of your readers would go for, Boris Johnson. Would you not agree? What would their take be on things today? Would you say bold, British bulldog-style politics? Would many of them agree with what's going on here?
I think so. A lot of Daily Mail readers voted for Brexit. They want us out of the EU, and they've seen in the last few years there's been a lot of dithering. We've had delays to Brexit happening, and they just want to finally get us out. And they liked Theresa May as Prime Minister. They wanted her to do well. But at the end of the day, she didn't manage to get us out of the EU. And now we've got someone taking a completely different strategy, and they will hope that Boris Johnson finally gets us out of the EU.
Talking a different strategy, as I'm assuming the Independent wouldn't agree with that?
No, so we're campaigning pretty vocally for a second referendum. But as you say, I think this is a strategy, this is a cabinet designed purely to get Brexit through. It's a sign to me of a Prime Minister who doesn't think he's going to be governing with this Parliament for long. I think an election is imminent. But what he's kind of hasn't factored in is that to get any deal through, he's going to need the support of his own backbenchers, a number of whom are now pretty angry about how he's handled things.
Doesn't this almost seem like a single issue, a campaign, rather than the restructuring of a government?
I think so, but Brexit's completely dominated British politics over the last few years, and as much as Theresa May tried to have a domestic agenda, at the end of the day everything came back to Brexit. Boris Johnson knows his number one mission is to get us out of the EU by the 31st of October, and he's showing now that that is his number one priority.
In terms of the appointments, what's the most shocking to you then?
I think Priti Patel as Home Secretary very much set the tone for what was about to come. This is someone who is not a unifying figure by any stretch, very contentious, was sacked from the government, of course, less than 2 years ago for holding secret meetings, effectively she hadn't declared, with another government.
She called for the death penalty as well.
She called for the death penalty. She's now in charge of law and order. So this is not someone that will bring the party together or, frankly, appealing to the swing voters the Tories need to win a general election.
And we had a defence minister who's gone after only just a couple of weeks after she'd been appointed at a time of crisis in the Gulf with the British flagged oil tanker. Is that what the Daily Mail readers really want to see?
Well, Penny Mordaunt was Britain's first female Defence Secretary. She's only
Exactly.
been in post for a couple of months. And I think a lot of people in Westminster presume that being that first female in that role, she would be allowed to keep her job. She's someone who supported Brexit and was part of the Vote Leave campaign alongside Boris Johnson, but she didn't back him for Tory leader, and now she's been kicked out.
Going to have to end you, but one-word answers, please. October the 31st, where will Britain be?
Still in the EU, heading for a general election.
I think we'll be heading for an election.
Well, there you go. That's the view of two key figures in the media. It is all to play for, some may say, but quite an extraordinary day in British politics.
It has
Back to
been.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew Simmons in Westminster. Well, now the Speaker of Puerto Rico's House of Representatives says they've started impeachment proceedings against Governor Ricardo Rosselló. He's been under increasing pressure after nearly